Hi, this is Ronald Johnson, your life coach, mentor coach. And what I do is I help people that are tired of who they are and where they are in life.
And this is Gloria, your life coach. I help those who are feeling stuck, struggling with difficulties such as self doubt, inner judgment, lack of confidence, life transitions, and taking steps forward.
And welcome to Life's a Shuffle podcast. Now, you may wonder why it's called Life's a Shuffle. And the reason why we came up with this title is that life is really shuffling. It doesn't matter where you come from, your background, what age you are, you're shuffling multiple things in life. And the best thing to know in life is everybody faces your struggles and everybody faces what you're going through. But there's hope in learning something about that. So when our guests share their journey, the hope is you learn something in that journey so yourself can navigate the struggles you face, the low self-esteem, the self-confidence, and that's why we call podcast Life's a Shuffle.
And throughout this podcast, we share our personal overcoming stories, as well as our guests who shares their personal journey in overcoming their personal struggles. Life's a Shuffle podcast is here to connect like-minded individuals.
And thank you for listening to Life's a Shuffle podcast.
Hi, this is Gloria, life coach and meditation coach. Welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.
Hi, this is Ronald Johnson, your mental health coach, and welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. And you guys know, of course, we have to have guests on our podcast. We love to hear their stories and hope you guys love hearing their stories as well because, being authentic is the best key to success. Being authentic is you love yourself more. And being authentic is you show yourself more self-compassion. And we have a special guest all the way from Bay Area. His name is Derek. Derek, welcome to Life's a Shuffle podcast. So tell our fans who you are and where you're from.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. So basically my name is Derek King. I was actually born in New Jersey, lived there for 2 years. Then I relocated to Asia where I spent time in Beijing, Hong Kong, and Shanghai through a course of like 10 years, basically because my parents relocated there. And, for me, I've always kind of identified as a basketball player growing up. And that was like a big focal point for me. I actually moved back to the U.S. when I was about 14, so a sophomore in high school, and that's kind of when I realized, like, oh, okay, maybe I could play basketball in college, and I could just, see how far I could go with it. But that was always a goal of mine, and I'm of Asian American descent, so there's not many Asian Americans in the college basketball world, especially at the Division I level. So being able to have accomplished my goal of playing collegiately at UC Berkeley, getting my degree as an Asian American, and also getting the chance and opportunity to play professionally for 3 years afterwards was a dream come true. In high school, I was actually a really bad student. I had like a 2.6 GPA. I mean, that's not terrible, but I had a lot of people, like, basically in my life, you know, looking back, if I would have told them, like, yeah, I'm gonna go to UC Berkeley and play basketball, they probably would have laughed in my face. But I think my story is just one that can inspire others to chase their dreams, and despite how things might play out, just to keep pushing forward. And you never know how things are going to play out in the end, because to be honest, my goal was never was to play Division I, but it kind of got sidetracked. I didn't think it was possible at a certain point because I went to a prep school after high school where I was basically trying to get recruited. I got to an NAIA school, which is just a different conference, but not as uh, good competition, I would say, as NCAA. And then I went to a junior college, you know, faced some hardship there. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it out of there. I told the coach when I came in, when they were recruiting me, like, my goal was to earn a Division II scholarship. And, as time went on and things kind of just ran their course, was really blessed to have gotten the opportunity to have a spot on the UC men's basketball team at UC Berkeley, along with a few other offers as well. But it took me like 4 or 5 years after high school to even get to that point. So it's definitely one of just not giving up and just determination. Um, you know, especially come from where I came from. No one would have thought that was going to happen. So just never giving up, and just really would never have imagined in my wildest dreams that I would have ended up playing at Cal. But it was a cool experience.
Wow. 4 or 5 years is sounds pretty long, right? But I bet that 4 or 5 years is that's a challenge and some kind of a journey that you went through there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I actually also repeated my freshman year in high school. Um, I really wasn't a good student. I was very like also have ADHD. So I guess to all the people out there that have some mental, health disorders or whatever, I get very sidetracked really easily. There's a million things going on in my brain all at once, and that was kind of a reflection of my schoolwork because I wasn't very good in school. But the things that I was passionate about, the things that I cared about, I put forth a lot of effort into. And yeah, like so I repeated a year if my freshman year of high school, so that put me a year back. After high school, I took a gap year to play basketball at a prep school called La Jolla Prep, which is now gone on under right now. It went out of business, but it was basically a corrupt program where the coach there was stealing money from the parents basically.
Oh,
Uh, we were like in two houses, and then eventually got evicted from one house and all got put into one house. We couldn't afford gym time to practice. It was like a crazy year. We were supposed to fly to Idaho for a tournament, and then we ended up just driving a crazy small van with like 12 guys, just stuff them in there for like 13 hours, like crazy stuff. And then went to junior college after. And as an Asian American, going to junior college is often frowned upon. Um, but yeah, all these obstacles, I had to go through, eventually led me to one of the best public universities in the world, and a very competitive basketball team as well, where we had multiple NBA players on my team. Jabari Bird, Ivan Rabb, um, a lot of other pros that are now playing in Europe as well. And myself, I got to play over in Asia, and we got to play the likes of Lonzo Ball, DeAndre Ayton, Markel Fultz. So a lot of other NBA players that were in the Pac-12 at the same time, and just getting to travel and make really good relationships. It was really awesome.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So you were born in Jersey, and then you went to Asia. What part of Asia did you go? Did you go to?
So I from New Jersey, I moved to Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for like 8 years until I was about 10. Then I moved to Beijing. Moved to Beijing, lived there for 3 years. Then, because I was so bad in school and all that, my parents, well, my mom at the time, I was a single mom. She decided to send me to a boarding school because she felt like she couldn't really control me. And so I went to an all boys boarding school in Connecticut called Avon Old Farms. And I absolutely hated it. It was like a school where you had to wear a suit every single day. You had 6 days of school a week, so Monday through Saturday. And it was an all boys boarding school in the middle of nowhere in Connecticut. So I was just really hating that. Was homesick, just terrible year for me, but definitely, uh, you know, learned a lot from it. It definitely played a factor as far as like who I am today. It definitely played a part.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that year, I moved to Shanghai, China, where I actually got to uh, go to a boarding school in China. My dad was living in Shanghai at the time, so like originally I thought I was going to be living with him, but then eventually he was traveling a lot for work, so he eventually just put me in an apartment by myself. So I lived by myself as a 14-year-old in
Oh
Shanghai.
my.
Um, so that was really cool. I got to, go to school, but at the same time, Shanghai is such a crazy city, and I was a big kid. I was like 6'2" as a 14-year-old, and my three best friends were actually seniors at the time because it was a small little like private um, private school, but basically very like conservative, like Taiwanese kids. Asian kids like that are more conservative, and I definitely just stuck out like a sore thumb. So I had like three friends that were like seniors that kind of just showed me the ropes, and they were taking me to like clubs and like nightlife, even on the weekdays and stuff like that. So all of this was such a shock to me, and I had like my own apartment, but yeah, it was wild. It was definitely way too much for a 14-year-old kid. But looking back, I definitely had some good memories. But yeah, it definitely reflected in my schoolwork. I did not do well in school that year. Um, I was just not focused. But as far as like learning life skills and like learning how to, you know, just have some street smarts and things of that nature, that really helped a lot. But yeah, my dad gave me basically 300 kwai, 300 renminbi a week. That's like the Chinese currency. Yeah, that's not a lot of money. That's like, I want to say like uh, maybe a little like 60, 70, 70 bucks a week to live, like for food and stuff like that. So I learned how to budget my money. Like when I first was up by myself, I would spend all that money in the first 2 days and have nothing left for the rest of the week. And I still remember the days where like I would have my friends bring food from their house to lunchtime so I could have food to eat. I remember, just going to restaurants and like ordering in China, like if you just want to, if you're eating with others and you just order like a bowl of rice, they'll usually just give that to you for free. And then what I would do is I would just order a bowl of rice and then order a fried egg for like one kwai, which is like maybe 25 cents. So that would be my meal. Like that would be like a go-to meal. I'd get rice and then like two eggs, like just to save money. But yeah, it was a crazy year. And then this was all while I was 14 years old, 13, 14. And then I moved to California after that to be back with my mom. She found out that I was living by myself. She thought that was crazy, which it probably was in hindsight. But yeah, I got uprooted. I was basically forced to move to America, and I wasn't happy about that because my whole life, all my friends, everything I knew was in China. Um, and I moved to the U.S. I was forcibly moved to the U.S. where I knew nobody. Um, as a young kid, new school, new everything, new world, and I wasn't happy. I actually, yeah, just we butt heads a lot, me and my mom, and actually, it got to a point where like I thought I was gonna get to at least go back home because I like they told me, oh, I'm gonna go to California just to help my mom move in because she was moving to California, and I would just be a summer vacation 2 weeks. But I didn't know that there was no return ticket for me back to Shanghai. So I came and they said, hey, you're not going back, and but then eventually in the middle of summer, like they said, all right, well at least you'll be able to uh, go back, get all your things because I only had packed 2 weeks worth of stuff. They'll be like, you can go back, get your things, and you know, just say bye to your friends at least. So I was kind of clinging on to that, but midway through the summer, I guess someone convinced my mom. They were like, hey, if you let your son to do that, he's not coming back. So then my mom changed her mind, and you know, she's like, yeah, you're not going back at all, period. And that was it was really hard on me, and I had like an outburst. I was like punching holes in the wall, and I went crazy, and my mom actually called the cops and I actually spent the night in jail, in juvie, I should say. So yeah, definitely had some low lows in my life. My mom and I butt heads a lot, and this is all before I even turned 15, I think. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
I actually haven't really even told that many people that. Um, but yeah, I did that, and then moved to the U.S. and slowly started getting acclimated with the culture. Started to make new friends. The one thing that kind of helped me was my love for basketball, and I quickly made friends with a lot of the guys on the team at Santa Teresa High School where I went, and that's where I also met Mike Allen, who was kind of like a coach slash trainer for me, who really helped like develop my game and give me some confidence as a young kid. Um, and yeah, I just kept going with it, never stopped, and eventually achieved my goals of playing professionally and in Division One.
Wow. That's that sure is a lot for a teenager. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, "Oh my god." I mean, I have a 14-year-old now. I think I can't even imagine someone that young to go through so much like that and even just living on your own,
Yeah,
you
no, it was
know?
crazy.
That is just some crazy life, and then I guess your passion now for basketball is kinda like what helped you turn your life around.
Yeah, I would say basketball was definitely a focal point in my life that kept me focused, gave me a goal to play in college, and it was a good outlet for me. Um, Definitely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. It seems like I would say this. Let's say congratulations on the fact that you made it. I
Mhm.
mean, because a 14-year-old kid, I never been to China, so I have no idea what it looks like at all. But just trying to manage money, trying to survive, you still gotta wash your clothes. It's just you're able to do all that and make friends. And it's correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like your mom lived in the States, your dad lived in China, and they were separated. Is that how it
Yeah,
worked, or what?
yeah, they were divorced. So while I was in China, actually, my mom was in India. So she was in India. She was working for Cisco Systems, and they had her in India. So, and I was in Shanghai with my dad. Well, I was supposed to be, but I was by myself in Shanghai. And then when my mom got the opportunity to relocate to California and be like at headquarters in San Jose, that's kind of when she was like, "All right, yeah, Derek, it's summer vacation now. Why don't you come here for 2 weeks and just help me get settled into my new house? Blah blah. See me." And then yeah, there was no return ticket. But yeah, I mean, when I was by myself, like in Shanghai, I remember like on weekdays we would just go out all night, never even sleep, and just like stay out all night, take the subway to school, which was like a 45-minute subway ride. So we'd go out until the subway opened in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning, take the subway to school, and then I hadn't slept yet at all, and I would just be in school
Oh
in
my
my
god.
classroom, like just sleeping in the classroom, like all
I was
day.
gonna say, like, I had to hear the story. So tell me some crazy stories like that are kind of funny. You look back, and say, "Man, I can't believe I made it."
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of them right there. Just and just the wild stuff I had to go through. Living in China on my own. Also, like just
How about
spending,
dating?
yeah, all those times, like just all that time by myself, not having the food. You know what I mean? Not being able to, you know, basically there was no one there to tell me to brush my teeth, to do my homework or do it. It was just basically a free for all. So I kind of just had to learn things the hard way. You know what I mean? So it was cool, but I enjoyed it. I loved my time in Shanghai. Like looking back, it was so much fun, but um, probably not the best thing for a normal 14-year-old. But looking back, I definitely wouldn't have changed a thing.
You were enjoying your freedom.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Yeah.
freedom. Yeah, especially for a city like Shanghai, where it is a nice city, but you're able to leverage public transportation. You're able to take the subway. You're able to take little motorcycle taxis for really cheap. You can get around the whole city. Be totally fine. Take taxis. So. I got to know Shanghai like the back of my hand, and actually made friends with a lot. Like after you get out of the subway station, usually you still have like a little bit of a ride to get to your next destination. So there would be a lot of like motorcycles that were just like freelance taxis basically back in the day, where they would just be waiting outside of the subway station. And I actually made friends with a few of them, and like I would have their numbers in my phone, and sometimes I would literally just like call them and they'd meet me downstairs, and then they'd take me to wherever I want to go. So I would just be like on the back of some random guy's motorcycle in China. But
Oh my
yeah, it
god.
was pretty cool.
I I'm
I'm
curious.
jealous.
I'm curious though, is this I would just want to know if this is something normal maybe in Asia to have someone at such a young age to for them to be on their own or be more in teaching them to be more independent, I would say, maybe.
No, I don't think it's that normal. Like for me, that was never the plan. I was supposed to live with my dad, and then they put me into this school that was supposed to be a boarding school. So I was there actually living on campus. But then there's like another funny story actually. So I got actually expelled from the boarding school. So
Oh,
that's why
okay.
I that's why I had to live by myself. So I wasn't expelled from the school. I was just expelled from the dorms because there's like it's actually kind of a funny story. Like there was one day, so like our dorms were like in a building that was like right next to the school, and where I lived was like on the fifth floor, so about like 50 feet in the air, maybe 60 feet in the air, and we all had dorms right next to each other. So me and then like my friends that were seniors, they were like in the dorms next to mine and the one after. And one day I locked my key in my own dorm room, so I couldn't get in. But I was also late for basketball practice. I didn't want to kick the door down. And what the seniors did all the time is if they locked their key in their room, if you actually go into the room, there's a window. You could actually open it and climb out, and there's an air conditioning vent on that's like basically like resting outside the window, and they're symmetrical like on every single room. So they would climb out of their window and then just hop onto the next air conditioning vent and then walk through the window of the next room to get in to get access to the next room. And I see them do that like a million times. So I was like, all right, well, today I'm going to just do that, right? So I went into my friend's room. I did the same thing. As soon as I climbed out of the window and I looked down, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so high in the air right now. And like I got scared. So I actually got the courage to jump to the next window, which was my room. And then I was sitting on this little concrete block, like about 60 feet up in the air, and my window was actually locked. So my window
Oh,
was locked too. So my window was locked and my door was locked. And now I'm stuck 60 feet in the air. And I overestimated how easy it was for me to do it. Like the concrete block that I was on was so small that I was scared to like shimmy back and like go back to where I came from and jump back onto the original one that I was on and go back into the other room because it was so small. I thought I was going to slip. So I just stayed where I was. I was too scared to go back, so I just stayed right on that concrete block. And like I remember to this day, like there was bikers on the street like looking at me. They probably thought I was trying to commit suicide or something. They were like, "Oh my gosh, what is that guy doing?" But yeah, I had my phone with me luckily, and I had to call the dorm lady. She had like the master key, obviously, and she was in the middle of like a staff meeting, and I told her, I was like, hey, I'm outside of my window, like, and she's like, what do you mean you're outside of your window? I'm like, no, I'm actually stuck on the air conditioning vent. I was trying to get in, but my window's actually locked too. And then she's like, are you kidding me, are you insane? So she like rushed back like in the middle of her meeting and then like opened my door and thankfully saved me, let me go back into the room like unharmed. But she was like, this is unbelievable, this is crazy, you could have died. And ever since that day, I was expelled from the dorms. And then, yeah. So then my dad was like, "All right, well, you can live in this other." He had like a vacant apartment, so I just lived there, and because it was closer to the school, and then from that point on, I was just by myself. So to answer your question, I know that's a long answer. I don't think that's normal, but my circumstance was just so abnormal that it just kind of led to that.
I got it.
yeah. I mean, that's a crazy story. I'm nuts and like I want to know about her. I'm like, how did he get back? I'm trying to picture how's it looking. So I know in bigger cities, everything's high rise, right? So everything's straight up. So everything has to be symmetrical, right? I'm
Exactly,
thinking,
yeah. And
how did he make it?
if you could just imagine if you open every window, there's like a little air conditioning vent from the room below you that's kind of like a concrete block. There's like two concrete blocks that kind of like cover the air conditioning vent. So right on top of the air conditioning vent, there's like a concrete block, and every single room had that attachment. So that's what I was kind of on.
Crazy. Wow, man. You need to write a book. It seems, I could be wrong. I do apologize. Culturally, most Asian people parents stay together, right? So it was your situation completely different or outside the normal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the like the divorce rate for Asian families, but yeah, I think a lot of Asian families try to stay together, but mine was definitely different. I spent time living with my mom, and then I spent a little bit of time with my dad, but then I spent a lot of time like kind of by myself too. Um, but yeah, when I moved back to the States, I was back with my mom. So that was definitely a big adjustment, from going back to having like rules and things like that. Is from coming from like a place where I basically could do whatever I want. So that was an adjusttant for sure.
Yeah, as I say, it
Yeah.
went from a free for all to now you got
Uh-huh.
you got you do your dishes, you gotta do your homework, you gotta brush your teeth, you gotta have a curfew, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's like structure.
Exactly that combined with the fact that I didn't even want to be there to begin with. Like she kind of forced me there. So it was a lot of conflict, with me and my mom. But I think looking back now, I can appreciate that it was probably the best thing for me at the time. I hated it. I didn't want to be in the States. I didn't know anyone there. But if I never moved to the States, I probably would have never played at Cal. I probably would have never got my degree from one of the best schools in the country. I probably would have never played professionally. So, you never know how things are going to play out. So it's funny how these like little events in life can kind of lead to things that don't make sense at the time, but looking back, you can kind of appreciate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once you start reflecting in life, actually Ron and I was talking about that earlier. Once you start reflecting in life and you talk about it and you start connecting the dots, things make sense for you now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Things that you were just like, wow, like that's not something that I liked at all. It wasn't pleasant at all. But if it weren't for that one event, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. It's like if that didn't happen, then that wouldn't have happened, which led to that, and it's the whole thing.
It's like, I call it the domino effect. There's a story I read, and it's in a book called Atomic Habits by I think James Clear. I don't know if you ever listened or read the book, but he describes how things, just a minute change, can change the trajectory. So, the example he gives is that there's a flight going from San Jose to New York, right? And obviously, the flight pilot knows how to get there. It's on autopilot, or whatever, right? All it takes if you to change 1 degree and you could end up in North Carolina. Just 1 degree off.
Hmm.
You can live in a different city. So that change was perpetual in everything else because going to best school, meeting Mike Allen, all this stuff. If that didn't happen, even though it was uncomfortable at the time, you wouldn't be where you are today, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that totally, definitely applies in my life, and I'm sure many people's lives as well.
Yeah, so you were diagnosed with, is it ADD or ADHD?
ADHD.
ADHD.
Okay. My question is, when were you diagnosed?
I was actually diagnosed when I was like, I want to say 8 or 9. And I remember, I still remember like going into like this psychiatrist's office. They made me do a bunch of like tests with like a bunch of like patterns and like some numbers. And they had a few interviews with me. And I remember the day, like I was sitting in a doctor's office with my mom, and they were like, "Yeah, like so your son has what we call ADHD. It's like attention deficit hyper something disorder." And
Mhm.
then like they told my mom and me, and I had no idea what was going on. I was like an 8-year-old kid. I was just like hella distracted. I was like distracted. I was like just thinking things were fine. And then I remember we left the doctor's office and we were in like this corridor where there was like elevators waiting to go down because we were in a high-rise building. This was in Hong Kong. And after we left that doctor's office where he said like, "Oh yeah, your son has ADHD," I remember like my mom just started crying like in the middle of the corridor, and I was like, "Mom, why are you crying? Like, what's going on?" Like, I didn't know what was going on. I was just like an 8-year-old like happy kid, like just like I didn't know what ADHD was, and then I was like, and then it just stuck with me. It's like, why are you crying? Like, and then she's like, "Oh, nothing, nothing." And it, to this day, I still remember that. And like, yeah, I remember in school afterwards, like during lunchtime, like the nurse would come into to my class and like give me like pills to like take to help me focus. And I remember being on those pills throughout middle school and high school. I stopped taking them after a while, but um, yeah, that's kind of like my story with ADHD.
Oh, awesome. I got a question. I'm kind of curious, right? Because I work in the mental health space. So you got diagnosed, which is great because some people never get diagnosed or diagnosed way later in life. You got the medication. Did it help you? And my other question is, I'm do a combo kind of question: is a school system set up for kids to have that have that disorder?
Yeah, so I was going to school in Asia at the time, so I can't really speak for the school system here in the U.S. But I do think that the medication did help me focus in school and stuff like that. I remember just like being able to like blow through a whole project that I procrastinated on, and once I took the pills, I could just sit down for like 6 hours straight, like undistracted, and just knock something out, like and just stay focused. Which is something like with me, like a doctor like would often tell me like my brain is like a Ferrari engine, but stuck in like a normal car, like sedan. Like, and then I'm just always like they would always say like to give me something to fiddle with, like there was like a squishy ball, like to say like during like lectures or like in class and stuff, you can kind of play with the ball to kind of like give your mind something to focus on, so you can like be present. Um, but yeah, I wasn't very diligent with my medication. Like after a certain age, I just stopped taking it because school to me was never really an area of interest for me. So like, even though it did help me in school, I didn't really care enough about school to want to take it every day because I was focused on basketball. So, but I would say it did help as far as like focusing and stuff like that.
Is the school system set up for someone that has that diagnosis?
So out in Asia is very rigorous. So I would say, uh, if you have ADHD and you're not aware that you have it, um, it could be very overwhelming. I remember like days where I would just procrastinate and just let things pile up and just compound. Like, oh my gosh, I have like this much work I have to do in like a week or in a day even, and that's not ideal. But when I moved to the states, the workload here was so much less than overseas in Asia, that it was manageable. But um, yeah, I would say the school system here is, I mean, to me, I'm not a really big fan of the school system. Like, I just feel like we're taught a bunch of stuff that we don't really need. I don't. I have strong opinions about that. I know it's not very conventional, but at the end of the day, like I think, if you take the medication and if you do have the diagnosis, it's beneficial to take it if you want to, focus and do well in school.
Excellent. I want to know the difference because I know I've heard stories about how you said Asia it's highly competitive. It's very rigorous. Even from the day you can start school, it's very rigorous. And in the states, it's a little bit different. And I kind of I resonate with you. Is I think our school system is really out to date and broken in a lot of different ways, and I have a strong opinion about that. I definitely understand that teachers nowadays have so much pressure on them more than ever before. There's no funding for schools. There's no. It's just really not what we need. And so I'm very opinionated about the fact that I think our system is broken. We spend a lot of our time not understanding how to build personal self confidence, self esteem, or we're not taught how to manage credit. How do you ask for a pay raise? How do you do stocks? Life skills that are going to be forever. Like
Yeah,
how do you raise a family? Like you don't learn
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
So I mean,
absolutely.
you learn that obviously by doing it and figuring out what works, but you're just not taught life skills, and I think it should be more focused on that. How to regulate your body through stress. I
Absolutely.
mean, I remember back in kindergarten, whatever grade it was at the time, um, taking a spelling bee test. And I got to remember 30 words, how to spell them correctly. I'm stressed. Like, oh my God, I don't want to get an F. I want to get A plus, and all that stuff like that. So I think then that's what I know now, but I didn't know then. I'm a very visual learner. So for me, I was actually in special programs growing up in school. I forgot my diagnosis. It's too long ago for me to remember, but pretty much I was giving extra time on tests and exams because I actually flunked kindergarten.
Mhm.
My parents weren't together, some things are going on, and I flunked kindergarten. You would think, well, all you're doing is coloring and sleeping, but it happened, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, um, I was getting extra time because I had a learning disability at that time. And it was really hard for me to learn certain things like grammar, punctuation, writing. It's extraordinarily hard for me. I have writing anxiety to the point I get paralyzed.
Mhm.
So I just avoid it. So that's what I'm saying. It's broken. That's my opinion about that. But fast forward, like you're 6'2". Did you get past 6'2", or did you get to 6'7", or are you 7 foot now? What's going on?
I'm about 6'3" now.
Oh man, you're tall.
Yeah, you are.
Taller than
Now you
me.
you know that I mean, being Asian myself, it's 6'3". That's just super tall for being Asian.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, it's rare. It's also rare.
Mhm. Yeah.
Tell us, how did I'm really curious. How did basketball? Why basketball, and how did Mike Allen change your life?
Yeah, so basketball, that was just like I said, I was actually a soccer player at first, and that was like kind of my passion. I wanted to be a professional soccer player at a young age, but it's just all of my friends started playing basketball. So like at lunchtime, we go back to sixth, seventh grade. Everyone just started playing basketball. I'm like, all right, well, I want to play basketball too, then, just because all my friends are doing it. And then just naturally, I got really good, really fast. And when I said I was good compared to my friends like in China. And then when I moved to the U.S., the level of competition here was a little higher, and it just naturally felt like something I could be good at. And you know, with Mike Allen, um, when I first saw him, I was just a young kid that didn't really know much. Like I had skills and like raw ability, but he really helped to refine those skills and mentor me and just instill that confidence in me because I was a young kid. You know, a lot of young kids, like even if they're talented, they don't even know how good they are themselves. But just to hear it from an older person, someone like Mike, who's played professionally as well, who's a really good college player, that's been a coach for a while. Just hearing it from a guy like that, it was just so powerful. And just instilling that confidence in me as a young kid was huge. Um, so yeah, he really helped to elevate my level to the next level. I remember him; he would drive to my house, pick me up in the morning before school. He would be at my house at 5:30 in the morning, and he gets nothing out of this. He drives to my house, picks me up. It's all dark out, it's freezing cold. Drives me to the gym. He's out there helping me, rebounding for me. Um, and I have nothing to offer him. He's just doing this out of the goodness of his heart because he saw something. He saw some ability in me and wanted to just help me. And I appreciate that. Looking back, these are the things that you can't really put a price tag on. Like it's just like priceless for a young boy to have that support from someone, is huge. So I definitely appreciate Mike a lot.
Yeah, looking at Mike, he seemed like he went above beyond a normal coach. I mean, when I think my coaches back in middle school or high school is just you show up to practice and sayonara, right? You really get that personal touch. If you look back in your experience with Mike, I'm just curious, what did he see in you did not see in yourself?
I guess he really just helped me just believe in myself. Even though I did believe in myself, like he like doubled down on it, and he helped me because it wasn't necessarily a physical thing with me that I lacked skills or whatever, like which I did. I mean, obviously there's always room for improvement. Even to this day I can improve in so many ways. But so much of basketball and many things in life are just about having that self-belief and that confidence. And that part of the game was really huge for him and for me. So just instilling that in me, um, to allow me to play to the best of my potential, was huge because before I knew how good I was, I would often, just play passively or defer to other players. But he instilled that confidence in me to be able to play through mistakes, make aggressive mistakes, You know, to always try to be aggressive, but not do too much, just to be yourself, but not passive. So I think that that was, big for him.
Wow, I would say that he really did see something in you. He saw a really good potential in you. And so he really took that time to be you were to him, I would say what it seems like to me is not only he's an athlete, but also like treated you like a son.
Yeah, yeah, he did, and I grew up without a dad basically, so um, that was big because I didn't really have that father figure to kind of you know show me what a man's supposed to be like, and I would say I have a few of those figures in my life, and Mike's definitely one of them. But a lot of that's like contributed to a lot of like you could call them insecurities or whatever, even when it comes to like just everyday life. And just having guys like Mike out there, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys like me that grew up without a father, and that was monumental for sure.
Yeah. Or girls that grew up without a
Girls
father
too,
also.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
What life skills did he teach you? Seemed like he taught you something that's perpetual. Like he taught you something in life. He taught you something, even though it was basketball related. But did he teach you life skills? Because it seemed like there was a correlation there.
Yeah, and to touch on with that question is what he said, what life skills. So what is that stuck with you to these days?
Yeah, I would say, with Coach Mike, he's always been very like he's a man of God, like he would say, like he's a Christian, he's a devoted Christian, and he would always try to instill that in in his players, and not only me. Like after our workouts, he would give out quotes for every workout. He just really instilled that work ethic, that hard work, that motivation. You know, pushing through adversity, I would say, is a large thing for him, for me as well, that I got from him. Because like as a sophomore coming in, it's not like I was a superstar. I was actually a bench player. I didn't play a whole lot. Junior year, same thing. Didn't play a whole lot. Averaged 5 points a game my junior year, which isn't that impressive or anything. But uh, he just told me to stay the course, not get too high, not get too low. And senior year, when my opportunity presented itself, I was able to become first team all league selection. I averaged like 18 points a game. I was one of the best players on our team, and you know it was pushing through that adversity that allowed me to like reap the fruits of my that I put forth. And that's kind of a common theme in my life, um, because I've always had to face adversity, kind of climb to the top, and then you're knocked all the way down to the rock bottom, and you have to climb all the way to the top again, and fight through that. Like I said, after high school, it wasn't like, oh wow, you played really well your senior year, let's just get you a scholarship right away to Division 1. Like, no, I had to go to a prep school, like I said, deal with all the evictions and the fraud, and I had to go to a junior college for 2 years, and then after that adversity, that hardship, I got to get to Cal and play there. But even when I got to Cal, there was more adversity, right? I had to, I wasn't playing a whole lot there, and it's a common theme in my life even to this day. There's always going to be that stress, that hardship, that adversity. And Mike is a very big proponent of like, fighting through that with enthusiasm, embracing that adversity and overcoming that adversity. And I know Mike's going through some hardship now, so it means a lot for me to kind of help bring light to his story, and just share who he is as a person genuinely. And just it's meaningful for me to be able to help him, especially someone that's helped me so much.
Yeah, I felt that too. I don't know if you know, but Gloria and I did a virtual coaching kind of workshop recently. We used the proceeds to help Mike Allen out as well because he just was a person that just hit. rock bottom,
Absolutely.
and and we did whatever we could to make sure we give back to people that hit rock bottom and they're trying to get up. Like he's trying to get up, and sometimes I give my clients an analogy. If you've seen a movie, there's one guy on a cliff and one guy reaching down for help, right? Because he's going to fall. But in Mike's case, he's reaching up and he needs people to reach down and help him up, right? Get to the next plateau, then help him get to the next plateau
Mhm.
because he's a humbling guy. He gives back. He has amazing quotes, and he's extremely authentic.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just seeing where he came from too, because when I was in high school and Mike was training me and stuff like that, I always looked at Mike in the highest light. Like, and to this day, I still do. Obviously, he's going through some hard times, but he had a very thriving business. Hundreds of kids he would help. He had a nice big house in the Bay Area. Very nice family and all that, and just to see where he's been and where he's at now, it is humbling because he had it all, and you know it's it hurts me to kind of see where he's at now, but I know he can fight and push through and get back to where he was, hopefully.
Hope so too. Hope so too. So, Derek faced a lot of adversity. Where are you now in your life?
Yeah, so now in my life, I've played basketball professionally for 3 years. So after that, I transitioned into basically tech sales. So I started my corporate career off at a company called Arango DB, where we were basically selling a multi-model database solution. So it was a very technical product, um, and that's basically an entry-level role for tech sales there. I spent a little over a year and a half there, and now I'm transitioning over into well, my current job now is account executive at a cybersecurity company called Dark Trace. So now, instead of setting up qualified meetings for account executives, I am the account executive that facilitates the whole sales cycle, prospects, gets a client into a meeting, presents a deck and a demo, a technical demo, coordinates all the technical contacts from our end, provide resources for 30-day free trials, and eventually try to close some deals as well. So I'm doing that at the moment. And I'm also, really big on cryptocurrency. That's definitely a new area of passion for me. And we touched upon this earlier, how we said the school system is broken. And I couldn't agree more with you, right? Like, learning how to invest your money, learning about credit, learning about taxes, and all these things. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're not taught that, right? The monetary system, the banking system isn't designed for the masses to know that it's corrupt. So this is an area of interest that has really, been like blossoming, I guess you could say, in the last couple of years. Just stepping into that world, trying to put as much money to my name as possible to work for me instead of just sitting in a bank losing value basically. So I'm doing that, and then also I have a barbering business that I'm about to open here in South San Jose. We're planning on opening in December, so things are moving quick. We just signed a lease agreement early October. Um, Ordered a bunch of chairs from China. We're getting flooring. We're painting the walls and just building this business from the ground up. And I'm doing it with a business partner as well. So I'm really excited about that. It should be a really nice shop here in the South Bay. So yeah, I got a lot of moving parts at the moment, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm
Nice.
excited to hear that story. From adversity to triumph, pretty much, right? You figured out what you can do using your skills and talents to actually support you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want it to seem like I'm some huge success story, because I definitely face a lot of hardships and adversity to this day. Um, so yeah, it's a constant battle. There's always like that stress and that hardship. I think is a constant in my life, and I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's without that you can't really enjoy the blessings as much. It gives you that perspective, and it gives you that um, perspective when you're able to overcome those hardships, and it makes you that much more appreciative of, when you get those small successes.
It
Yeah,
certainly
and
does.
it does. And that's how that's who makes you, because it's how you navigate through that adversity, or how just how you navigate through any challenges or obstacles in life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, um, like I said, you just really never know how things are going to play out. And while you're going through it, it might seem overwhelming, but if you just keep pushing forward, you could be surprised. Like some amazing things could happen in the end.
So true.
So true. You know what? As we get towards the end of our podcast, I want to say first, Derek, thank you for sharing your story. It resonated with me on a lot of different levels, emotionally, physically, and makes me feel humble where I'm at in my life today. And I hope for those out there that hear your story, realize, man, I'm an Asian American too. If he did it, I can do it kind of attitude. And I always ask my clients, not clients, sorry. I always ask my guests, I'm so used to saying word client, I apologize.
No worries.
I ask my guests, what is 1 to 5 sentence as a takeaway for those that are listening to this podcast? You can say,
I would say there's one thing I thought of that I forgot to mention, and I think this could be important for all the people that are listening, like for all the parents out there that might be having some kids with some mental disorders or ADHD or ADD, or they're maybe struggling in school. Just to not lose hope. Give them that positive encouragement, because with me, you know, I felt like when I was a kid, there was a lot of times my parents were almost embarrassed of me. Like, oh my gosh, like this guy is like struggling. He's all his peers are doing so well in school. He's falling behind in everything. He's repeating ninth grade. He's getting expelled out of the dorms. He's getting kicked out here. He's going to juvie. You know what I mean? Like just to not lose hope on your kid, because everybody has gifts in their own way, and to just give them that support, um, and just know that like I said, I've said it throughout the podcast. It's just you really never know how things are going to play out. And although I've overcome a lot of these obstacles and hurdles, um, none of that would have been possible without the support of people like Mike, or like my mom, or like many other adults, or not even just adults, but just positive figures in my life. So I would say just to not give up on kids that might be struggling, especially the parents. Not and to use your network and really just try to be creative in the ways you approach these obstacles and adversity.
I love that. That
I
is
love
so
that.
true. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. That's how winning
Mm.
is done.
And
Absolutely.
yes, I do love that too. And also, just to let you know, we do have a lot of youth listeners on our podcast that follows us and are constant listeners on this. And I think that this would really, I know that your story resonates with a lot of them, and this is very inspiring story to, most especially a lot of the youth these days who might be going through the same challenges that you had, or speaking of ADHD, I know a lot who has that challenge and has a challenge at school. And I like that you also had given that advice to the parents, because I have seen parents who at times they don't know what to do anymore. Like do they want to give up, or do they don't know what to do with their child because they feel like the child is challenged or just always troubled. These are
Absolutely.
really, really great advices. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, yeah. Like just to say one more thing, like about that as well. Like growing up, I always like just being in especially in Asia too. Also a little bit when I was in the U.S., but like just having ADHD and knowing that, and just having the nurse come in, like all the kids, like, oh, why is the nurse always giving those pills to Derek? Like, or like me struggling in school, like I always felt like I was the dumb kid, or like I was never in the accelerated math classes. I was always, struggling and all those things. But you know, people with ADHD, people with mental health disorders can be very intelligent in a lot of other ways. And, it's, uh, looking back, I felt like I was the dumb kid, but in reality, like, those were just areas of like, like, things where was just not that interested in. And, it might be the same for a lot of kids out there. You're not dumb, like there's, there's so much that you're capable of. And just don't be discouraged because like I said, been a rock bottom, been laughed at, been getting the worst grades in class, and been to actual juvie, ended up graduating from the best public university in the world. So it's yeah, I would just say, like, to all the kids out there that think you're dumb or all that, don't be down on yourself, because there's greatness within everybody. And I know that sounds cheesy, but like, I would have never believed it. So just keep pushing forward, and you never know how things are going to play out.
No,
I
that's
agree.
so
There's
true. I
greatness with
agree. Yeah.
everybody. I agree. I like the last little tidbit. That thing had a lot of media into that scenario. It's just, again, back to the school system is it's not one size fit all. You can't stick a square
Exactly.
peg into a round hole. It's just not. I mean, some kids, excel at certain things. You're like, why they excelling then? But you're measured by Johnny over here because he's in advanced calculus and he's in the ninth grade. You're like, okay, how come Johnny must be smart? He must be lucky. Everybody's just good at different things. Everybody has a different beat to the drum, and you got to find your beat to that drum so that we start playing your own tune. And once you play your own tune, everything is much better.
And you
And
Exactly.
thanks
stick
you.
to that, right? You stick to that. So if you have a passion like Derek did, basketball, that was his focal point, that he focused on that. So it was like an outlet. So again, it's finding that outlet that will help you. And like Derek did, I think that would be great if you just, I think there's, like what you said, everybody has that gift. So once you figure out and you find that gift, you follow that energy and you follow that passion.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it can open up more other doors that you might not even be aware of. So yeah, I would definitely say that, for sure. Um, just like Ron said, it's not a one size fit all, and there's no guarantee that the person in high school that got the perfect SAT scores, the perfect grades, there's no guarantee that person is more successful than you are, more happier than you are. So like, when you get into this nitpicking, like, comparisons and all that stuff, it's not a productive game to play. I would just say, focus on yourself. Have utmost confidence and belief in yourself, and you know what you can, what are your gifts, what can you bring to the table. And it might not be like a perfect 4.0 GPA, it might not be perfect SAT scores. So yeah, everybody definitely has value.
Certainly agree. Everybody has value. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter who you are, skin colors or religion, you personally, whoever you are, Johnny, Billy, Sally, Ron, Derek, Gloria, you are important. I want to say thank you, Derek, and thank you out there for our audience for listening to another Life's a Shuffle podcast where you share your true, authentic stories. Be yourself, be who you were meant to be. And always, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to listen. And if you want to be a guest, go to email us at lifesashuffle.com so we can connect.
Or you can check out lifesashuffle.com.
Check that
Right.
out as well, too.
Yes. And thanks again, Derek. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your story to our listeners. And I'm for sure there will be a lot out there that resonates with your story and something to learn from this. Again, thank you for listening. This is Gloria, your life coach. And thank you for listening to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.